My name is Pradeep and welcome to another video. For those who are new to this channel, previously I made a video on the scientific method. If you have not seen that video, I suggest you to watch that video. This channel is for you to become a scientist. इसीलिए we will learn every concept, every topic, every concept through the scientific method. इससे आप सिर्फ एग्जाम्स के लिए ही नहीं, बट जो भी आप लर्न करोगे उसको अपनी प्रैक्टिकल लाइफ में अप्लाई कर पाओगे. सो लेट अस बिगिन एक्सप्लोरिंग. अभी जो हमने देखा दैट वाज आवर ऑब्जर्वेशन, जो कि साइंटिफिक मेथड का फर्स्ट स्टेप है. दैट इज टू ऑब्जर्व, टू आइडेंटिफाई द प्रॉब्लम. वी जस्ट सॉ द प्रॉब्लम और यू कैन से मिस्ट्री, जिसको हमको सॉल्व करना है. सेकेंड स्टेप इन द साइंटिफिक मेथड इज बैकग्राउंड रिसर्च, जहाँ पे हम फैक्ट्स एंड थियोरी को पढ़ेंगे. जो साइंटिस्ट ने डिस्कवर किया था वो हम देखेंगे. Our problem is जो flowers हैं वो बहुत तेजी नंबर से बढ़ रहे हैं. But you should think, there is a question that how are they doing so? कैसे new flowers इतनी जल्दी they are growing, they are becoming so much in number. Just like हमने questions पूछे, वैसे ही एक टाइम पे scientists they also asked questions. उस टाइम पे they wanted to know कि how different plants they were growing, they multiply, they grow in number, and they wanted to know कि एक प्लांट इतने सारे प्लांट बना. तो ये पता लगाने के लिए उन्होंने प्लांट्स को इन डिटेल स्टडी करना शुरू किया. जस्ट लाइक दे डिड एट दैट टाइम, आज हम भी करेंगे. तो फॉर टुडे वी ऑल आर साइंटिस्ट. वी आर प्लांट बायोलॉजिस्ट. प्लांट बायोलॉजिस्ट आर दो साइंटिस्ट जो कि प्लांट्स को स्टडी करते हैं. तो आज के लिए वी आर ऑल्सो साइंटिस्ट एंड हम उस मिस्ट्री को सॉल्व करेंगे. आपने क्लास 11th में पढ़ा होगा, या फिर if some of you don't remember, I'll just quickly brush it up. Sexual reproduction is one of the types जिससे organisms reproduce. It is the formation of new organisms through the formation and fusion of gametes. Gametes में there are two types, male gametes and the female gametes. When they fuse, they form a zygote and then the organism it develops. इसी principle पे the whole process is based, which we will study. This is very important. सबसे पहले, like any scientist, we will study the parts of a flower. In any plant, major processes of reproduction, it takes place in a part which is called a flower. This is a flower. This is an artificial flower, but I will show you a real one. देखो, इसको थोड़ा zoom करके. Now let's see what are the parts of a flower. Remember and keep in mind that हम scientists हैं. तो उसके हिसाब से let's see. स्टार्ट करेंगे फ्रॉम द बॉटम टू अप. नीचे से इफ यू सी दिस पार्ट जिस पे होल फ्लावर इज बेस्ड इज कॉल्ड द थैलेमस. अब ऊपर आते हैं. दिस बल्ज्ड पार्ट, बल्ज्ड मतलब थोड़ा लाइक राउंड, थोड़ा राउंड स्ट्रक्चर. दिस बल्ज्ड पार्ट इज नोन एज ovary. Next, इसके अंदर if you see these structures which are inside the ovary, these are known as ovules. इनको हम in detail देखेंगे further in the chapter. अब see these parts, these green leafy parts which you see, which are near this ovary, these parts are called sepal. This is a sepal. Then और ऊपर आएंगे these big structures which you see, जो कि यहाँ पे if you can see this, जो ये yellow part है, this is called petal. flower के most of the outer parts, जो कि जैसे petals, sepals, ये यहाँ पे thalamus जो कि outer area में. Now let's go inside. flower के inside में देखते हैं कि क्या है. You see these green structures जो कि present है. These green structures are called stamen. These are called stamen. And ये जो बिल्कुल center में present है, this is called a pistil. See, these are some real flowers. इसके petals, if you see, this flower has white petals and this flower has purple, or this flower has pink petals. So different flowers have different colors of petals. These leafy structures, these are your sepals. अब मैं आपको flower के inside वाला part, that is the pistil and the stamen, वो वाला I'll show you. See carefully. More or less, it is in the center, a green colored structure. See, that is pistil. If you can see these ये वाले structures, white जो is standing, they are your stamens. इनके basic functions क्या है? Thalamus जो कि it provides a base, that's like a base. This is where the whole flower is based upon. Then petals, they are more or less not very important. They are of different types of colors, sizes, size, shapes. Sepals which are just below the petals. अब flower के अंदर देखेंगे जो मैंने आपको अभी in detail दिखाया है, that is very important and that is very interesting too. क्योंकि scientists when they were discovering, they actually found out that there were some specific structures in a flower which are responsible for the reproduction of the plant, which are stamen and the ovary. These were the important parts of a flower. आपने different types of flowers देखे होंगे which play important roles in our daily lives. जैसे कि flowers पूजा में use होते हैं, flowers bouquets में use होते हैं when there is a celebration. So these flowers are attributed with different values like aesthetic values, different values like social, religious, and many more. Flowers are everywhere. They are all around us. Plants are such beautiful organisms. You will get to know why at the end of the whole chapter. In sexual reproduction, the main event is the fusion of the male and the female gametes. इसी process को fertilization कहते हैं. So scientists they divided this process into three parts. Number one, pre-fertilization, जिसमें कि fertilization के पहले के events होते हैं. Then second, fertilization, in which the male and the female gametes they fuse to form a zygote. Then the post-fertilization, जिसमें वो events होते हैं जो कि after fertilization होता है. हम उसी order में इनको समझेंगे. Before the development of a flower, there are so many changes which are happening in the plants. बहुत सारे changes जैसे different hormonal changes, structural changes होते हैं in a plant just before the flower is going to form. To understand the reproductive process of a plant, we have to identify the two main components of this process. That is the male reproductive organ and the female reproductive organ. जिनके बिना sexual reproduction in a plant would be impossible. Just like scientists did, we will also identify male and the female reproductive parts of a plant. So, in a flower, male reproductive organ is the stamen. और एक flower में there are many stamens. So, this whole group of male reproductive organs is also called gynoecium. This represents the male reproductive organs of a plant. And in the center, which you see, this is the female reproductive organ of a plant. And this whole group is called as endoecium. ये क्या represent करता है? ये represent करता है the female reproductive organs. अब हम in detail focus करेंगे and पढ़ेंगे the male reproductive organ first. We will study the male reproductive organ first. The stamen is a male reproductive organ. Let's see the structure of the stamen in detail. This round part is attached to the thalamus or to the petal of the flower. Up going upwards, this long stalk-like structure is called the filament. It's called the filament. Coming to the top, this structure, which is important, is called the anther. This anther is very important because this is the fertile part of the stem. मतलब कि this is the part or this is the structure which is involved in the reproduction process. Since anther is a fertile part of the flower, इसी के लिए अब हम anther को in detail study करेंगे. One of the easiest example जिससे हम anther को समझ सकते हैं is with a capsicum. See, the capsicum has the structure of roughly which resembles the anther. अब इसको समझने से पहले we have to first understand sectioning. Sectioning मतलब किसी भी object को different types से cut करना so that we can study it more effectively. अगर मैंने ऐसे वर्टिकली इसको कट करा, लाइक इसको ऐसे वर्टिकली ऐसे स्केल लेके या एक नाइफ लेके अगर मैंने ऐसे वर्टिकली कट करा, सो इट वुड बी अ लॉन्जिट्यूडनल कट, मतलब वर्टिकल सेक्शन में कट, सो इट इज अ लॉन्जिट्यूडनल ट्रांसेक्शन। एंड अगर इसी कैप्सिकम को मैंने हॉरिजॉन्टल में कट करा, मतलब इस प्लेन में कट करा ऐसे, मतलब एक नाइफ लेके अगर मैंने ऐसे इसको कट करा, देन इट विल बी द ट्रांसवर्स सेक्शन। इमेजिन दिस एज एन एंथर। अब हम इसको ट्रांसवर्स कट करेंगे एंड देन उसके अंदर देखेंगे व्हाट इज द स्ट्रक्चर लाइक। सो विद दिस हेल्प ऑफ दिस नाइफ वी विल कट दिस कैप्सिकम। देखो अब हमारे पास वी हैव दिस, now we have cut it in the horizontal plane on the transverse section, and up we can see what an anther looks like from the inside. पहले आप देख लो अच्छे से। The same structure I have drawn here. This anther has been cut like this horizontally, and उसके बाद then this section we are viewing the lower half of this section. इसलिए ये था। Now you see just like this capsicum, you see this structure. यहाँ पे this part it actually divides the anther into two equal parts. So these are the two lobes. ये एक lobe है and ये एक lobe है. So these are two lobes, or we can call it as bilobe. Anther is bilobe, मतलब इसमें there are two lobes. And जैसे कि इस कैप्सिकम में there are 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. वैसे ही in an anther there are 4 spaces. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, and these spaces are nothing but chambers, chamber-like structures, chamber-like structures, like bag-like structures, which are called, this structure is called as a pollen sac or a microsporangium, or in plural a microsporangia. Let's count how many of these microsporangiums are there in the anther. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 microsporangiums. There are 4 microsporangia in an anther. We call it as tetrasporangiate. मतलब कि there are four microsporangia. There are 4 microsporangia. So they are called as tetrasporangiate. During the development of an anther, these microsporangium they grow and develop into pollen sacs. हम उनको तब pollen sacs कहेंगे जब the anther has mature. जैसे जैसे वो mature होते हैं, the microsporangia it grows longitudinally. मतलब ऐसे in length वो develop होते रहते हैं. And finally they become like this, these long sacs, and are called as pollen sacs. अब हम इस एंथर को इन डिटेल देखेंगे। अगर इस एंथर को आप टॉप व्यू से देखोगे तो वो कुछ ऐसा लगेगा। So this is how the transverse section of an anther it looks like. Before knowing that what is that thing जिससे reproduction would be possible, we have to know कि कैसे वो चीज बनती है जिसमें those important things will be made. Just like अगर आप एक नया घर बनवाते हो तो उससे पहले आप समझते हो कि क्या क्या मटेरियल्स यूज होंगे, कैसा स्ट्रक्चर होगा उस घर का, कैसे वो घर बन रहा है। वैसे ही हमें इस होल माइक्रोस्पोरेंजिया का जो ग्रोथ है पहले वो समझना पड़ेगा। सो दिस इज द टीएस ऑफ एन एंथर, ऑफ अ यंग एंथर। मतलब कि ये जो एंथर है अभी ये fully develop नहीं हुआ है. This is still in the developing phase. These 4 structures are the microsporangium, and one single is the microsporangium. Now we have to look how this anther it develops by focusing on one single microsporangium. This is one microsporangium. अब इसमें अगर हम in detail देखें the structure, starting from the outside, the first layer of this microsporangium is the epidermis. This is the outermost layer. Then the next layer है, it is called it is known as the endothecium. endothecium. And further जब हम और अंदर देखेंगे, so these layers, these are the middle layers. These are the middle layers. Middle layers. Up some more important cells would be found in a microsporangium. This layer which you can see in green is called the tapetum. Tapetum. The tapetum is a very important layer in the microsporangium. क्यों? क्योंकि it has many functions. And after tapetum, you can see this cell, जो कि mostly it is present in the innermost part of the microsporangium, which is known as the microspore mother cells or MMC. अब इन लेयर्स के फंक्शंस क्या है? लेट्स सी. एपिडर्मिस जो कि सबसे आउटर मोस्ट लेयर होता है माइक्रोस्पोरेंजियम. then just below it is the endothecium जो कि एपिडर्मिस और मिडिल लेयर्स के बीच में है. then the middle layers are present between the endothecium and the tapetum. next is the tapetum. अब ये जो tapetum है, this is a very important layer. It also has very dense cytoplasm. मतलब इसमें जो साइटोप्लाज्म है, it is very thick. One of the most important function of the tapetum is it provides nutrients and nourishment to the developing microspore. मतलब कि the microspore mother cells जो कि आगे जाके that important thing बनेगी, उसको this tapetum layer it provides nourishment, it provides food, and then lastly these cells will be responsible for that thing जो कि necessary है for the reproduction. यही चीज अगर हम इस स्ट्रक्चर में देखें, इस माइक्रोस्पोरेंजियम को, this is your epidermis, this is your endothecium, these are your middle layers, and this is the tapetum. So I hope you have an idea what is the structure of a microsporangium. Similarly for all microsporangium. Now let's see कैसे that important thing जिसकी मैं बात कर रहा हूँ it forms. Now you can see in this structure ये जो pink cells है, these are called the sporogenous tissue. It has certain types of cells which are called sporogenous cells. This is in the young anther when it is developing. Now these sporogenous tissues they undergo division. They grow in number, and उसके बाद these mother cells they are formed. मतलब कि these sporogenous cells they develop into these microspore mother cells. So they develop into microspore mother cells or MMC. Now these cells they are diploid, that is they have two sets of chromosomes. अब ये जो cells है, these microspore mother cells they divide through the process of meiosis. Which is the reductional division, जिसमें कि the chromosome numbers are half, and one single microspore mother cell it forms 4 cells. मतलब कि one cell जो कि अगर if you take one cell it divides and forms 4 new cells through the process of meiosis. This cluster is known as the microspore tetrad. मतलब tetrad means 4 in number. उसके बाद जैसे the anther matures and develops, they get detached. मतलब कि वो cluster formation से हटके the 4 cells they become separate, and this one cell it gives rise to that important thing, and that important thing is known as pollen grain, or also called microspores. So a structure is formed which is known as pollen grain or microspore. So this whole process जिससे कि the pollen grain it forms from the microspore mother cells through the process of meiosis is known as microsporogenesis. मतलब कि माइक्रोस्पोरोजेनेसिस. जेनेसिस मीन्स टू मेड, किसी चीज का बनना. एंड किस चीज का बनना? माइक्रोस्पोर. माइक्रोस्पोर which you saw, it is the pollen grain, the final product. The whole process is called as microsporogenesis. After the pollen grain has developed and matured, उसके बाद क्या होगा? As you can see, this is a mature anther. इसमें you can see that the chambers have merged. The chambers have merged together, and the छोटे-छोटे green structures you can see, these are the mature pollen grains. After development, these pollen grains are then released from the anther for the next step. ये process जानने के बाद scientists they got more curious. उनकी curiosity और बढ़ गई. They wanted to know more. They wanted to know what is this pollen grain. They wanted to know whether it has any important function. If yes, what is the function? If not, तब भी they wanted to know that what is this pollen grain? What is this structure? इसके बाद उन्होंने the development of the pollen grain उसको in detail study करा through different methods. हम भी वैसे ही pollen grain को उन्हीं की तरह, because we are also scientists today, we will also study the development of the pollen grain like them. After this formation of the microspore tetrad, अगर हम एक microspore को लें तो the microspore when it develops, it has a central nucleus जो कि बिल्कुल center में present है, and there is cytoplasm and there is a plasma membrane just like any other cell. Then as this microspore it develops, it grows in size, it grows in size, and if you see these structures are known as vacuoles. ये जो vacuoles है, these are spaces which are inside the microspore. तो ये जो vacuoles है, these also start forming, and इसी की वजह से and due to this formation of vacuoles, ये जो nucleus था it gets pushed downward. अगर आप देखोगे the nucleus यहाँ पे center में है, but यहाँ पे due to the vacuole जो space ले रहा है it pushes the nucleus down. इसके बाद further when the microspore grows this vacuole it becomes big and ये एक बन जाता है, ये merge होके एक बन जाता है, ये एक बन जाता है. Then this nucleus it will divide. Go under division. अब जैसा division. If you would remember that in cell division, जो nucleus है, the chromosomes, they are separated to these spindle fibers. These spindle fibers are responsible. इसकी वजह से the chromosomes they are pulled to two different sides, to two different poles. So यहाँ पे there is a division which is going to take place. अब what type of division is this? इसको हम समझेंगे after the formation of the final stage of the pollen grain. So finally what happens is there are two cells which are formed. एक this big one, if you can see ये वाला, this big cell you can see, and there is a small cell. अब ये जो big cell है, this is called the vegetative cell, and ये जो छोटा वाला cell है, this is known as the generative cell. Now notice very carefully that यहाँ पे in the beginning there was one nucleus, but final cell में there are two nuclei. ये हुआ कैसे? ये हुआ during this stage when the division was taking place. So एक nucleus से it became two nuclei. This vegetative cell it has a big irregular shaped nucleus, and the generative cell it has a nucleus but it is small. It is more like spindle shape. So one nucleus became two because of the formation of the two cells, and यहाँ पे भी vacuoles present है, and there is cytoplasm. But the generative cell, it has more thick cytoplasm, more dense, or you can say thick cytoplasm. This vegetative cell it is big, it has food reserves for the nourishment of the pollen grain. अब ये जो generative cell है, it is basically it floats in the cytoplasm. It is actually floating in the cytoplasm of this vegetative cell. मतलब कि the vegetative cell is the major cell. उसी के अंदर there is this small cell which is generative cell, and it keeps floating in the cytoplasm of the vegetative cell. So this is the, you can say this is the mature pollen grain. This is the mature pollen grain. It has been seen that 60% of the angiosperms, the pollen grain is shed in this stage. मतलब in 60% angiosperms, the pollen grain is shed at this stage. Not this two cell stage, which is the vegetative and the generative cell. Shed at two cell stage. And in remaining 40%, what happens is ये जो generative cell है, it divides mitotically, not meiotically, but mitotically, and it becomes two, which are the gametes. So it becomes a three-celled pollen grain. So 60% angiosperms, they are released in a two-cell stage, which is the vegetative cell and the generative cell. And in the remaining 40% angiosperms, the pollen grains are released in the three-cell stage, जिसमें there is vegetative cell and the generative cell. It becomes two male gametes, two mitosis. अब जैसे scientists they studied the pollen grain, हम भी वैसे ही in detail pollen grain को study करेंगे. उससे पहले we have to know an important thing that pollen grain, it represents the male gametophyte. मतलब it is responsible जिससे आगे जाके male gametes they would be formed. Male gametes are necessary for the process of fertilization. जिससे कि the further reproduction will take place. अब हम शुरू करेंगे to study the pollen grain just like before. That is from the outside to the inside. सबसे outer layering, this red colored layering which is present at the outside, it is known as the egg sac. It is known as the egg sac. It is the most external wall of the pollen grain and it is called the egg sac. Then as we move in, this layer, this inner layer, ये वाली layer, it is called as the intine. It is known as the intine. Since it is present inside, it is known as the intine. उसके बाद as we move in, we see the same structure जो कि हमने just अभी देखा during the development of the pollen grain. So यहाँ पे these are the vacuoles. These are the vacuoles. This irregularly shaped structure is nothing but the nucleus of the vegetative cell. And this is the cytoplasm of the vegetative cell. Now if you see this structure, it is the generative cell. This is the generative cell. And here the structure you are seeing in the center, it is nothing but the nucleus. The spindle-shaped nucleus of the generative cell. अब there is a thing that you should carefully notice, which is कि अगर आप देखो this exine layer, this is not continuous. यहाँ पे there are gaps. In this area there are gaps. यहाँ पे there is an opening. It is like a port, like a gate, which helps in the flow of different materials like nutrients and food materials. So it is like a passage, जिससे things can go out and in, and it is known as a germ pore, which is basically a pore or an opening. सारे pollen grains एक जैसे नहीं होते. Different pollen grains of different species, they are of different texture, they have different shape, size, color. There is so much variation, but generally they are globular. मतलब कि they are more or less spherical in shape. We can say that generally they are spherical in shape. अब इनका जो size होता है, इनका size usually कोई definite नहीं होगा, but there is a range, and the range is usually 25 to 50 micrometer. That is the diameter of any pollen grain. मतलब diameter मतलब starting from here to here, या फिर ये to ये. This hole is your diameter. This hole is your diameter. So the diameter is usually 25 to 50 micrometer. Coming to the pollen grain, that inside it is the vegetative cell, then there is a generative cell. अब focus करते हैं थोड़ा इसके walls पे, the outer and the inner walls. By logic, I should tell you about the external wall, but I'll do it in reverse order. मतलब I'll tell you about the intine first, then exine. क्योंकि exine is special, and why it is special, I will tell you. This intine, ये जो layer है, is made up of two organic material, which are number one, cellulose, and number two is pectin. These two materials, they make up the intine. ये जो इंटाइन है, इट इज अ कंटिन्यूअस लेयर ये पूरे सेल में पूरे पॉलन ग्रेन में फैली हुई है। अब बात करते हैं हमारे स्पेशल लेयर की, which is the exine. This exine is very special. It gives the pollen grain special powers. And ये special powers है क्या? We have to know. ये exine, it is very hard like a rock, like a stone. It is unbreakable, and it is also very, very strong. It is strong. It is durable. And क्यों the exine is so strong, so hard? Because of sporopollen. This sporopollen is the material which makes exine so strong, so special. What special features and powers it gives to the pollen grain? They are this sporopollen. It makes the pollen grain durable. Any temperature, may it be high or low. Any temperature, high or low, extreme high or extreme low temperatures may be, the pollen grain is not affected. Then any acid or base, जैसे कि you would know that acid is very strong. It is used to clean different things, जैसे कि toilets and all. And अगर वो हमारे skin पे गिर जाए, it burns it. But imagine, due to this sporopollen, the exine becomes so resistant to acids or bases, strong acids or strong bases. They cannot affect the pollen grain at all. Then there are certain molecules which are present in living organisms. They are known as enzymes. In biology, enzymes are very functional. They are also used to degrade any material and very strong. And even these enzymes, they cannot break the pollen grain. So the enzymes ये भी pollen grain को affect नहीं कर पाते. So you see, this is why the exine is so hard. It is so strong. Sporopollen की यही वजह से pollen grains are also stored as fossils. आपने सुना या देखा होगा कि fossils मिले, किसी plants के fossils मिले, which have survived for so millions of years. Just like that, sporopollen is responsible जिससे a pollen grain it can be preserved as a fossil. क्योंकि बहुत many years it can survive. So you see, there are so many special powers of a pollen grain. Just like everything has a good side and a bad side, वैसे ही the pollen grain also has a bad side. Pollen grains of different species or different plant species, they are dangerous, they are harmful for some human beings. They cause severe allergies and sometimes different bronchial abnormalities that can lead to major diseases, chronic respiratory disorders, which are basically asthma, bronchitis, etc. They majorly affect the respiratory system. There is a plant which is known as parthenium or carrot grass, which came to India as a contaminant. मतलब कि it was not wanted, वो as a गंदगी जिसको आप कह सकते हो. And what happened is धीरे-धीरे it multiplied, it grew in number, and is now known to cause different pollen allergies. Pollen grains can be useful too for us. Pollen grains are very nutritious. Different supplements, जैसे कि tablets, they are used as food supplements, tablets, and syrups. It has also been claimed that pollen grains से athletic performance of humans and horses it also increases. They are also taken to improve health. So pollen grains are very diverse. It has both good sides and the bad side. Now the next step after the pollen grain has formed, जैसे ही pollen grain अब release होगा from the matured anther, it has to reach the female reproductive organ of the flower so that fertilization can happen. Different materials have different expiry dates. वैसे ही a pollen grain also has an expiry date, which is its viability. मतलब कि the pollen grain has a limited time period in which it can germinate. The viability of pollen grain, it depends on different factors like around temperature level क्या है, humidity level क्या है, and more. In plants जैसे कि rice and wheat, their pollen grains, they lose their viability within 30 minutes. मतलब कि आधे घंटे में their viability it finishes just after their release. And some plant members of the family Rosaceae, Leguminosae, and Solanaceae, they maintain viability for months. These pollen grains can also be stored in very low temperatures, just around minus 196 degrees Celsius, in liquid nitrogen in certain setups which are known as pollen banks. मतलब कि it is a place which can be used to store pollen grains of different species so that आगे जाके अगर कोई भी problem आती है like droughts or anything, these pollen grains from the bank could be used for breeding and growing new plants. बट वेट, दिस इज नॉट द एंड. रिमेंबर, जो हमारी प्रॉब्लम थी उसका अभी भी हमको सोल्यूशन ढूंढना है, जो कि हम अगले एपिसोड्स में ढूंढेंगे. सो दिस वाज ऑल फॉर दिस वीडियो. एंड अगर आपको कहीं भी डाउट हो, आप कमेंट में पूछो. एंड आई विल एम्फसाइज दिस दैट यू नीड टू आस्क क्वेश्चंस. थिंक अबाउट व्हाट यू स्टडी, नॉट जस्ट कि पढ़ा, नोट्स बनाए एंड याद किया एंड हो गया. नहीं, थिंक अबाउट देम, डिस्कस अबाउट देम, बी क्रिएटिव. मेरा मिशन सिर्फ एक है कि आप स्टडीज को, बायोलॉजी को एंजॉय करो, उससे डरो नहीं. एंड बायोलॉजी शुड गिव यू हैप्पीनेस. एंड आप लोग, यू बिकम द फ्यूचर साइंटिस्ट. दिस इज ऑल फॉर नाउ. I will meet you in the next video. Until then,